severe injuries, including a fractured finger, a partially amputated ear, and deep wounds. He remains in stable condition at the San Fernando General Hospital. The suspect has since been detained by police. A Trinidadian man wanted in the U.S. for attempted murder has been extradited to face trial in New York. Vincent Robert was charged in 2021 for allegedly trying to kill his ex-girlfriend in Brooklyn. He fled to Trinidad in 2022 while out on bail. The U.S. requested his extradition last year, and he was arrested in Laventille in April. Authorities say his extradition highlights the strong law enforcement cooperation between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States. If convicted, Roberts faces up to 25 years in prison. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Attention everyone! The Office of the Prime Minister Communications has launched a brand new WhatsApp channel designed to keep you informed and connected like never before. Get real-time updates, breaking news, and important information directly from the source. With our WhatsApp channel, you'll always know what's happening when it's happening. Joining is easy. Use your phone camera, scan this QR code, tap follow, and that's it. You're in. Be sure to tap the notification bell to never miss an update. Stay informed, stay empowered. Join the conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I would ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services, yeah.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
WESN.
One of the difficulties in modern society is how do you separate emotion from objectivity? Because far too often, a modern audience, a modern population, doesn't have the time to really delve deep into most issues. If there's something that is deeply affecting them, they'll delve deep into that. If there's something that's deeply affecting you, you'll delve deep into that as much as you can. You'll talk about it, you'll ask people that you know, you'll ask people if they know people. Now, in the past, the information wasn't as readily available. You didn't have phones, so if you need to talk to somebody, you would have to walk to them. So obviously then you had no internet. So that was one of the main obstacles in order to be informed on issues. But now, the information is so readily available, and yet still, we just don't seem to have the time. Except for people like me whose job it is to spend at least some time delving into things. But ironically, even when you do have the time and the responsibility to do so, sometimes, at least with some things, it's hard to do it because emotionally you do not want to have a breakdown just by following all of the bad things out there. But that's a whole other point. Because we can't follow issues, as many issues as one would think in a democracy where we select our leadership in order to make an informed decision, we should know a lot about many things, really, to make a truly informed decision. Capitalism, to some extent, is predicated on decision-making based on perfect information with regards to the theory, right? Of course, we know in practice that doesn't happen. Democracy would be something similar. And that leads us to now when you get into situations where technically laws are broken, but you don't necessarily feel good about either enforcing it or letting it go and letting people ignore the law. Yet there's a middle ground where we're stuck in. And I think that's what happens when you talk about squatting. Yes, there are some people who believe the law is the law. Squatting is illegal and it should not be encouraged. And to some extent, yes, squatting should definitely not be encouraged. But then there are those who are like, but they're there already. What are you going to do? Kick them out on the street? And this is where you get to the catch-22. Because if you don't kick them out on the street, you are basically encouraging squatting. And if you do kick them out on the street and demolish their home, you've kicked them out on the street. You've made them homeless. That technically is not a good thing. No one should be happy for that. So now that we've gotten to a point where the HDC is looking to demolish some houses in Ramjata and Trace La Hocketa, it brings up those questions again. And I think this might be one of those things where we as a society, when it comes to things like this, where there isn't a clear consensus, you see, everybody will agree murder is wrong. We should not allow murder to be legal, right? Robbery is wrong. We should not allow robbery to be legal. Squatting seems to be that there are some people who maybe they don't want to make it legal, but they want to provide something. They want to be compassionate. And compassion at times, this is the problem. Some issues, objectivity and compassion do not meet in the middle. Some issues, they could diverge, especially when in this case, now there are conflicting reports about the particulars of these dwellings on state land, I believe, because some of the residents are saying they're living here a long time. But yet, if you track satellite data, assuming that it is correct, I don't know by what way it would be incorrect, but I'm still saying that just to leave open the possibility. but I think it's a reasonable assumption to make. These dwellings are not that old. In most cases, the earliest, or I guess, yes, the earliest that they would have been constructed would have been 2018. So they're not that old. They're not 40 years old. They might be 5 to 7 years old, or less in some cases, because some of the structures were constructed between 2018 and 2023. So some of them could be as early as last year, or at least the construction would have been completed sometime last year, right? They just gave a general range. That's not 40 years, as one resident, one of the squatters apparently claimed. So what do we do? Because also the HDC apparently did give them grace periods, right, to try to figure it out. It is similar to what happened, and one of the reasons why you can't just allow squatting on state land is when the airport project came up, there were conflicting reports with regards to how the residents were treated. So the long and short is, I feel as though some residents, either they were not necessarily aware of what was going on, so they were protesting something inaccurately, because it could have been that maybe the actual landholder, agreed to a settlement and they didn't agree to a settlement, or maybe they did agree to the settlement, but they never moved, so now the money's gone, right? And they don't have the available funds to move at the drop of a hat, but they were given time, relatively speaking, to move. At least in some cases. For the most part, if they had a case where they were treated unfairly, one would have expected somebody may have taken up the baton to sue the state, or maybe nobody did and they don't have the resources to do so. To some extent, we'll never fully know, those of us who are not part of that bureaucracy or lived through that, so it is what it is. But the point is, it was a case where now the state kind of had to force these people out of their homes. Because according to the state, they did everything. They gave them the payments, they gave them the time, and time was up. And that's one of the things with regards to enforcing a law or a rule. Why is it that it seems as though you give people a time limit, and then when the time is up, it's almost like, oh God, why are you bothering me for? I can't just move out all of a sudden. Yes, you had all that time given to you to make a change, and you didn't. Of course, it's hard to necessarily believe everything the government says at face value, and to believe that when these things happen, it's always done the right way. Chances are there's going to be some not done the right way. And then that's going to potentially tarnish the image of all of these similar situations. So what are we as a society supposed to do about it? Well, ideally, we would be proactive. We would have an opinion, be willing to voice the opinion in a manner that will allow a consensus of the population to reach the ears of the politicians so that they will know where the majority of us want to go on this issue, one way or the other. And then they could potentially, in theory, enact legislation to allow for such. One of the things I do wonder is if, to some extent, what we need is not so much legislation to deal with squatting, but proper guidelines and practices and policies to deal with transparency of these issues. How these things would be published to the media, because we kind of get the tail end of it when we're forced to make a decision and it's all new to us. We're forced to have an opinion because it's put in the national papers. And the government will be forced to defend itself. The people involved will be leveling accusations, justifiably or unjustifiably, and the population is caught in the middle, having to figure out who's right and who's wrong. Because, again, it's not like it's murder. Someone commits murder, we all agree it's wrong. It's not that we think anyone thinks that squatting is right, but it's at what point do you run people off of land that they're living on? And perhaps the issue that we have with squatting is really a symptom of poor management and poor governance and poor oversight of the economy. And that's not necessarily just to Parliament and the elected politicians. That also includes the bureaucratic processes of our state, which to some extent are run by the various public entities, ministries, etc. Who has proper oversight? Who allows for these things to be built in the first place? Because all too often, in various ways, you hear about structures that should not be allowed to be built, like the stuff built on airport land, like with the situation where someone made a whole garage on top of a gas line when nothing was supposed to be built there. And not only are illegal structures allowed to be built, but then the utilities will hook up to these structures, because the utility companies, the right arm of the government in this example, do not know what the left arm of the government is doing, that is to say town and country planning and any other relevant agency whose job it is to say, hey, you all can't build that there, you all can't build that like that there, you all definitely can't build on a gas pipe. And perhaps we get to these situations with squatters because we don't understand how to nip things in the bud and to do things properly the right way from the beginning. And now we have to scramble for a solution at the end, and there is no perfect solution. So how many of us are now going to side with the squatters and their tares, and how many of us are going to side with the state and a proper, objective, though not necessarily compassionate, view on law and order? Because we've reached a point where the casual law breaking of what is seen as less important laws, well, at least a few of my callers believe that contributes to the higher end of law breaking, to the violent end of the spectrum. And I can't disagree with that, because we make it too easy to just not take on our laws. Last thing I want to just kind of speak about before we get into the heavy topic of the day. Dr. Keith Rowley apparently is hoping that maybe we could utilize West African yams, Ghana varieties, to grow those varieties in TNT to help with the food import bill. Now the problem is, technically speaking, there have been discussions of alternatives to importing foods that can be grown locally. Ironically, some of those alternatives, provisions, etc., we import that too. Right? Some of the alternatives that we could potentially locally produce, we import those as well. I think ultimately, all of this talk about what we could grow or we can't grow, part of the problem is with our foreign exchange situation as it is. I believe this is why none of our major corporations want to reinvest in TNT. I could be wrong, but I suspect this is one of the reasons. Because if they reinvest in TNT and the economy gets worse, that money is essentially trapped in TNT because they probably won't be able to get the foreign exchange to take it back out. So the risk is higher. But then the main thing is, for food production, foreign food is too cheap. And now comes the hard question. Because in theory, how do you encourage people to eat more local food? You could either subsidize it or you could tax foreign food imports. The problem is, subsidizing local food will cost us money directly, and taxing foreign food will potentially just make the cost of living higher, at least in the immediate and short run. That could lead to inflation before people's change in their taste. Because that's essentially what you're asking people to do. Change your taste. But it's not just the taste, it's the fact that it's readily available and cheaper than the alternative, because we do not produce food within the realm of economies of scale. We do not utilize those concepts. We do not increase our production and our operations in order to enjoy those benefits. Individual farmers, what kind of scale do they produce by? So when they have all of these independent operations that are not enjoying economies of scale, it potentially is going to be less efficient and more costly. And people are going to say, why am I going to buy the local stuff, which is potentially viewed as worse than, when it's more expensive than the foreign import things? So again, are you going to tax those foreign import things? And I do believe that they did add VAT to certain more luxury high-end food products. Or are you going to try and subsidize local agriculture. Well, given the size of local agriculture, and the Americans do it, do we have the budget for it? Agriculture is not necessarily given that level of importance in the budget. So, but without something like that, either a tax to protect or a subsidy to support our local agricultural industry, will it ever have the legs to stand on to compete with cheaper foreign imports, to get to the level where at least the prices are comparable? You don't have to be cheaper than the foreign imports. You have to be at least comparable. And you also have to be available consistently. So if there's a shortage, it better not be anything we locally produce. And all of that is not easy. You need to invest not just now in the crop, but also in strategies, whatever equipment, whatever procedures, whatever raw materials you need to ensure that your crop is not damaged in any significant way so that you could give a consistent product. And you might need more land in order to ensure that you always have crop ready to be sold to distributors, to be put on supermarket shelves. To what extent have we done that? We don't necessarily know. I mean, who knows? Agriculture might not be as bad as we think, but no one tells us. So the Prime Minister could say, yes, we will try a new yam variety. But there have been other things that we could have already introduced to the ecosystem to be that thing that we could grow, and it hasn't worked out yet. And it's not because of necessarily the agricultural science side, or what can we grow. That's not the question. The question is the business side. How do we make it enticing to local customers? And we haven't really solved that. We don't know how to do that. We are our only... Think about it. All businesses in TNT, they only know how to do one thing. We build a thing, come and see it. We have oil and gas money. Oil and gas is not a thing that you have to market. Hey, you want to buy my gas? Hey, you want to buy my gas? No. Somebody will eventually seek you out to buy your petrochemical fuels or what have you. We've never had to market anything. That's why tourism isn't marketed, much less any agricultural product we might have. We don't know how to market. We barely know how to market to ourselves. That's why information distribution in this country, whether from the government or private entities, is probably, that's why it's so poor. We don't really have that much ability, practice, or proficiency in disseminating information and enticing customers. Yes, you might see some ads that are good and are effective, but overall, we're like fish out of water when it comes to this. I mean, I'm just speaking from what I observed from the results. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll do the daily review. Stay tuned.
Trinidad and Tobago, stand ready. The biggest night in American football is here.
And WESN is bringing you all the action live from 63 Lounge on the Avenue.
The plays, the touchdowns, the halftime madness. We've got it all.
Join us as we break down every moment, every touchdown, and every controversy.
It's the Super Bowl, baby. And WESN is the face of sports. Shawn Michael Small is here with me.
Catch us at 63 Lounge on the Avenue, where the passion for the game meets the ultimate Super Bowl experience.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
All right, first story, of course, DCP Benjamin is now the acting commissioner of police. And I mean, some interesting commentary came out because of it. One of the things is the Prime Minister's commentary. But first of all, the DCP Benjamin, he has come out and basically said that he is hoping to have open discussions, address concerns, and restore morale within the force while rebuilding public confidence in the police. That is a quote reported in one of the daily newspaper stories this morning, I believe. He did push back against people saying that crime is spiraling, and to some extent, he is basically correct. You can't say that crime is spiraling out of control because the stats don't suggest that. However, the stats, arguably, I don't agree with an interpretation to say that there is significant enough improvement. He's not necessarily saying that there is, right? So, but maybe I am not as optimistic in his interpretation regardless of the crime statistics. Yes, they are lower, but they are not low to the point where we could say, we could see things going in a positive direction, because part of the litmus test will be what will happen when the SOE is over. Now, just want to point out that the suspended Commissioner of Police, Airlink Christopher, actually has had some nice things to say to the new commissioner, and seemingly has no ill will to him, and he has no ill will to her, which could be a subtle something that the conspiracy theories may then utilize and interpret as part of the conspiracy. I will not necessarily speculate further with regards to what I mean there, because I don't think it has any practical value, at least not right now. Maybe in a few minutes it might. But one of the things that I want to speak about is, it's interesting that the Prime Minister, his statements that he wishes, this is one of these days when the government wishes it did not have this responsibility. And I actually can't see a world where, given everything that happened with the merit list and Gary Griffith, and the selection and retention of Ayla Hayward Christopher, it's hard now for the government to kind of put that genie back in the bottle, where the public, you want to try and convince us that you're not involved, and the fact of the matter is that could very well be the case. But, right, because he wants them, he said, he's quoted as saying, I want to make it pellucidly clear, quote unquote, that this operation had nothing to do with his government. The problem is it's hard to believe, and I do wonder if to some extent part of why he said we did not have this responsibility, they don't want to be involved. Because, yeah, this is just not a good look. This is just not a good look. So, is the government involved? Maybe, maybe not, right? Some people will say, oh, he's just saying that to cover himself. Other people will look at that and say, Yeah, I could see where he really wishes that he could divest himself from this totally and not be associated with it at all, because he's going to get flack. This is the unfortunate part. Let's just assume that the government had nothing to do with this at all, right? They're going to get flack for it anyway, because of the precedent set with how they communicate and acted in the past. They're going to get flack for it anyway. And this is one of the reasons why you need to always do the right thing, because then if you get caught doing things that are questionable, that will stick to you and haunt you for the rest of your administration, and at times will cause you to potentially be treated unfairly. And the only person you really have to blame for that is yourself. Maybe this should be a lesson that the Prime Minister should pass down to his protege, Stuart Young, before he assumes office, maybe. Let's move on to the next story quick. The opposition, of course, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, but I was somewhat appreciative of the opposition's stances on this. Several opposition MPs, of course, were very, well, they made their opinions known during the debate, and they did not necessarily get off of their point where they wanted her to be replaced. However, and this is where I am appreciative, because details matter, right? And making clear distinctions between different situations matter, as opposed to trying to overgeneralize things because it's an easier slogan, right? And you're dumbing it down for people. No, we don't need to dumb things down for the population. You could disagree with Ayla being the commissioner, but also disagree with the process that currently is being inflicted upon her. And that's what the opposition is saying, and at least in this, I will appreciate that. I will appreciate them for that, right? Let me just double check some things here. So MP Saddam Hussein, he's one of the people who has, clarified this position, and I'm happy they have not just stuck to the fire Ayla bandwagon, but they are making this distinction. We have indicated from the UNC that we were dissatisfied with the performance of Ms. Hayward Christopher tenure as commissioner. We still hold that view. I don't want to comment particularly on the merits of the case, save and accept that this was an opportune moment to fire the commissioner, and I think they messed it up. We really don't have an issue with these two candidates. Again, to be specific, they are being specific. The issue is not Junior Benjamin. The issue is not his replacement. It is really the process that is taking place and how they arrived there today. One of the dissidents, Rodney Charles, who this is more or less his last few months as a parliamentarian, he also was quite vocal with this. He had an issue again with the process, right? We are given a CV and they say, you see that CV, that is the basis for you to make that appointment. And he has brought back criticisms that was leveled on the process from before. This is not new, right? But I can't disagree with it, that why is it just based on a resume? There's nothing, because he actually says in a different part of the public service, right? I just want to get to the... He was a manager in MP 30 years ago, and we were told in management courses that a CV is not acceptable for appointing an individual. As in, you can't just look at the CV alone and then pick, right? I assume you would have to have some sort of interview process in order to clarify things, to get a feel for the person's character, personality, their fit, not just, the stated academic credentials, which does not give you a good read on their things like their work ethic, their judgment, their mindset, their personality, their character, whatever. Yet in TNT, almost 40 years later, I am in Parliament, and all I am given is a CV. And to some extent, the officers and the union has also said, and then they have parliamentary privilege, so they could disparage us all they want, but we're not interviewed by them. So they're just talking off of a CV and what they think, but do not necessarily know, because they don't know the officers for the most part that they're speaking about. Not well enough anyway. Rushland Paré also said the process needs an overhaul. He's saying, look, maybe this has gone past its usefulness, right? There are weaknesses in the system, and we are seeing it today. And who could basically who could agree that the system seems to be working all well and good? This is our third police service commission in I don't know how many years, and basically we have not had a peaceful situation with the Commissioner of Police since the meritless situation. This latest fiasco with the Commissioner of Police, this is Paris saying, has us as the laughingstock of police services around the Caribbean. I mean, let's not forget that the government was quick to try to defend the country's reputation against YouTubers, but cannot seem to be able to see how certain decisions or actions or just incidents, whether they have control of it or not, are eroding our reputation abroad. After you've embarrassed the country, this is Paré continued to speak, the office of the police commissioner, now you go in and ask the head of security council if he knew about these rifles. This is about DCP Martin's letters. And whether they approved it. Now you're writing to the Prime Minister after you arrested them. It is really a case of the tail wagging the dog. That cannot be right for a country like Trinidad and Tobago who wants to return to a leadership role in CARICOM. And we are fumbling and bungling every single thing. Well, I would rephrase that as fumbling, bumbling, stumbling. But, yeah, that's a pertinent question. Stephen Williams and others have come out to say you're supposed to have all your ducks lined up in a row before you arrest the commissioner. Not arrest the commissioner in what looks like now a fishing expedition, and then, hey, Prime Minister, head of the National Security Council, perchance, maybe you authorize this, you know? Are we now asking that question before the arrest? There are other MPs that contributed pertinent questions to this, but we don't have time to get into all of it. Maybe we'll discuss some more of it as we welcome our guests. Of course, you know who it is, one of our contributors. Stay tuned, he'll be next on Talking Point on WSN, the Content Capital. We'll be right back after this.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Trinidad and Tobago, stand ready. The biggest night in American football is here.
And WESN is bringing you all the action live from 63 Lounge on the Avenue.
The plays, the touchdowns, the halftime madness. We've got it all.
Join us as we break down every moment, every touchdown, and every controversy.
It's the Super Bowl, baby. And WESN is the face of sports. Shawn Michaels Small is here with me.
Catch us at 63 Lounge on the Avenue, where the passion for the game meets the ultimate Super Bowl experience.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
let's go to the last part.
I'm back here and talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small alongside our newest colleague, in a way, because it's not as though he hasn't been here before, but he is an expert in disaster management and also a former member of the TTPS. We are speaking, of course, of retired Inspector Ashraf Ali. Good morning, sir. Welcome back to Talking Points.
It has been, it's a pleasure. We never had enough, we always have situations with respect to the police service. Yeah? Never dull day. It's never a dull day when the organization.
Ashraf is not here just to speak about the police service. Unfortunately, a thing happened, right?
Yeah,
and,
so true.
And for me, I've been speaking about it all week, but I actually have to remember you haven't been here since last week, Friday. So, you know, a lot of the ground that I've already covered, you technically haven't covered and waited on as yet.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I guess,
but there's a lot. So when you listen to a lot of things that happen, and I've been following it from a little while, and notwithstanding that we are in a crisis. This is crisis management.
Right.
Right. So when you're treating with crisis, you have to treat it in a particular manner, because the police service, whether we like it or not, we were in a crisis. Crisis in terms of the executive and the office of the commissioner being arrested. Trinidad and Tobago went into crisis.
Well, why exactly does that make it a crisis? I mean, it's not something that happens every day.
No, it's not.
But this is not a situation where we had a smooth direction, a clear line to follow.
No, it's not. So when you're dealing with critical incidents and disaster management and along this line, situations like these are considered to be crisis. It's a crisis management, because the organization was in a crisis, because the reason for that is that it was not a normal situation that presented itself to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. It was something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And it had ramifications both internally, externally, and internationally on how Trinidad and Tobago is perceived. So it is a crisis, and how we treat with the crisis, how we manage the crisis, speaks volumes to us going forward, and how the outcome is going to be. One of the areas in treating with the crisis, Police Service Commission would have appointed a Deputy Commissioner of Police for a level of stability for the organization.
Right. This is to be acting commissioner.
Acting commissioner, yeah. Right, Mr. Benjamin. I would say it was a good choice, the obvious choice. I listened to the debate in Parliament, and I agree with the Prime Minister. Sometimes you do or you don't, you will have...
There's no way that he won't be blamed for something regardless of what he did.
But I am saying it's a good choice. Yeah. In this circumstance, it's a good choice in this circumstance.
Taking away what was done with Euler.
Yes.
Once we get to the point where we have to select somebody, nothing wrong with that.
No.
But the problem is before.
Right. So they appointed the acting commissioner of police for the purpose of stability, because we are also still in a state of emergency. Right. We can't forget that.
And also his replacement, Kurt Simon.
Yes.
Also no one has an issue with that.
No, nobody would have an issue, because he did in fact hold a position at some point, a deputy commissioner position at some point in time, and it's a logical and a good choice.
And I think he also has enough goodwill with regards to his work between then and now.
And nothing has been, and there has never been any negative against him. So it's good choices. And I'm saying, in managing the crisis for now, those are good choices to bring some stability to the organization and to Trinidad and Tobago Police Service going forward. The issue with the former Commissioner of Police now is a different slant on it. The crisis has not been elevated because the investigation is still ongoing. A lot of names have been called, a lot of controversial issues has been dealt with, have been put out on the public domain. So that has to be dealt with both from the court perspective as well as from other areas. So that part of it still needs to be treated. So you cannot we just can't take things for granted in the organization and say that whatever you do doesn't have impact. It has an impact, right? The moral in the organization may not be as high as it would have been when the incident took place. It would have been elevated, right? Person might feel a bit more satisfied. I personally would say that I am comforted that Mr. Junior Benjamin is now the acting commissioner of police. I know him personally. Right, I've worked with him, and he's a very good choice. He's a very good choice and has a clear level-headed person, and I think he will do good for the organization going forward. Right? A lot of persons might feel the same way as I, with respect to Mr. Benjamin. Some persons may or may not, because you can't get 100% satisfaction from everybody. But I would say the vast majority is supportive of him.
But would it counteract, because we've already seen at least in one daily paper, officers on condition of anonymity in various units, and I think at least in one case it could have been a senior officer, not sure if it was a DCP or an ACP or a senior superintendent, was one of the people speaking about, and they were talking about, well, the whole arrest situation and how that was handled. You know, there's a lot of questions about it, there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of mistrust, and it seems as though, and, you know, we've spoken about this to some extent last week, to some extent off air, you know, how that was handled. And I guess one of the issues and why it's a crisis too is there's already issues about the police policing themselves. And then there's also already issues about the police handling high-profile investigations like murders out there, you know, external to the organization. But now you have this internal situation where you are arresting the commissioner of police. And the DPP has twice said, you all don't have enough to charge anything. And her lawyers come out to say they don't have any evidence. And a lot of the questions is, hold on, is this how you handle high-profile cases where seemingly you kind of shoot first, ask questions later, as in arrest, and then you're not necessarily arresting with enough substantial information to at least make it be reasonable? You don't necessarily need enough to charge, but at least to make the arrest reasonable and to maybe continue the investigation, you have to release the commissioner, and who knows how this is going to all turn out now.
And this is where the comments from various forums are coming out. Whether it was the proper thing to do in that circumstance based on what you have. Now, I don't know what evidence the investigators have. So I cannot speak speak towards the evidence. But the process, I would say from an investigative perspective, you do not execute an arrest or try to execute an arrest of this nature or high-profile arrest of this nature, not ensuring that all your ducks in a row. As our former acting commissioner, Mr. Williams, would have said, ensure and ensure all your ducks in a row, because you know that there would be ramifications towards this arrest. And any arrest, wherewith any arrest of any citizen, the average citizen, you must also understand the constitutional rights of the individual and ensure that what the ramifications are. But this is not the average citizen we're talking about. We are talking about office holders. And anytime you're going after or putting office holders and the office and the office holder in disrepute, you better know where you have. You better ensure that you have all your ducks in a row. And when you reach the position where you could do the arrest and bring out the thing, we talk about the arrest, and all of a sudden you get released. And pending further investigation. Those are things that when you go by DPP will say, they will look at your file, and they will go through the file, and the DPP would advise on what other actions to take to strengthen your case. Right?
Yes.
But if you're going down the road, let's put it this way, for homicide, homicide investigators do not arrest somebody for homicide unless they have all the evidence to present to the DPP, for the DPP to say, arrest that person and charge them for, lay the relevant charges. They can detain the person and inquire from the person, whatever they want, but they do not go down that road unless they have everything, because they cannot afford to have missteps or mismanagement of the cases for the matter to go down the drain.
Yeah.
So if you're treating a homicide of that nature,
And we've seen cases go down the drain.
Exactly.
Right? We are very publicly.
So this does not augur well for the organization in trust and confidence in the manner in which we investigate matters.
I need to ask, based on what you have read and seen, and maybe heard, or maybe not, do you even know what potentially she was going to be charged with?
No.
Because that's one of the things.
That's the question everybody is asking.
Right? Because, I mean, Guy Griffin, I guess, spilled the beans, right? But it's there for anyone to see if the ministry's PDF file of the Firearms Act is not down. Because I ran into this wonderful thing. When Gary said what he said about sniper rifles not being illegal because they're not automatic, I'm like, that can't be true. That can't be true. What does the Firearms Act say? And based on a PDF copy from the Ministry of Attorney General and Legal Affairs and a scanned paper copy from the United Nations, there's nothing that says sniper rifles are prohibited.
No, it doesn't.
The only thing on firearms that shoot bullets that are prohibited is automatic. Everything else deals to artillery, which does not mean big rifle. It's literal artillery, explosives, mines, grenades, blah, 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 and things to shoot off or spray noxious gases, biological or chemical agents, right? So, ironically, by Wednesday, that PDF file on the ministry's website, that was no longer available.
Well, it could get in any. It's still available on the laws of Trinidad and Tobago because it has not changed.
Right. So that's to me that's a $1 million question. But here's a slightly contrarian view, and I'm not saying that I agree with this. And I've recently reiterated what you just said about having all your ducks in a row. And I've been saying that at least for the latter half of this week. But apparently it came out that Suzette Martin went to Euler and informed her we are investigating these sniper rifle things, right? So she knew about it. And now they're quick to arrest her. Could it be that the concern was, because on one hand, because you arrest her so quick, you lose the element of surprise. Now they're aware. And this is one of the things where I guess the basic argument of not putting stuff out in the public domain on active investigations is you don't want the suspects to be aware of what's going on at times, right? So now the commission is fully aware because you can't be more aware than if they confine you to your office. Could it be that maybe they jumped the gun because they were afraid she might have been trying to cover her tracks because she was aware of the investigation, right? And she did sign the forms. The flip side is her signing forms, as you said from the very beginning, there's no illegality for that.
I cannot speak to the mindset of the investigators and what they were thinking about, and in terms of doing the arrest, executing the arrest, what evidence they had at that point in time. But what caused the problem is the manner in which it was done.
Right.
The manner in which it was done, they arrested the commissioner, right, which they're entitled to do, right, if your investigation is going. Any citizen is entitled, the law enforcement can arrest you if you're inquiring about, you can arrest anybody. So that the issue of the arrest is not an issue, and it's not an issue to the manner of the arrest. When the arrest was being done, the entire media was outside. Why? Why the media was outside of the police admin building, waiting to hear that, and it already on social media that the commissioner has been detained in her office. What was the intention behind that?
I mean, on one hand, it could have been an officer leaking it. On the other hand, it could have been somebody purposely leaking it so that this is made public for other reasons.
They made, I would say, and I would agree with our former acting commissioner of police, Mr. Stephen Williams, in this, that it was not handled properly. There were plenty other ways that this could have been handled more professionally, and he was right to say that the office of the Commissioner of Police deserves a bit more respect, right? And
not the person sitting in the
no,
office,
the
but
office,
the
office,
Yeah.
because you didn't go at the person alone. You went to the office, and whoever sits in that office represents the office.
Because
so it could have been dealt differently.
Even if it was a case where she's covering her tracks and you want to arrest her before she could do any more harm to the evidence, right? Without enough evidence of your own, this is a net negative. This is, listen, okay, you got caught. You can't try to compensate now by just arresting her and see what you could find in a fishing expedition. It might be the case where, look, you just have to let it go and continue the investigation as best you can, because if this gets out, it's like basically, I mean, because people will say, given the, I have basically asked this question, but in a different way, right? Because it seems as though the Police Service Commission, they suspended her because she's under investigation and there's suspicion. But the DPP says there's not enough evidence to charge, and Palmer Elder saying there's no evidence at all. So by that standard that the Police Service Commission and the arrest of Eliel Christopher has set, well, shucks, how many politicians should be arrested because of just random wild accusations that are unsubstantiated right now? The whole cabinet could be arrested, the opposition leader could be arrested. They have retired parliamentarians that should probably be called before, you know, all of their pensions should be suspended, I guess, because suspicion is, there's a lot of suspicion in this country, right?
Their value for all, the conversation has a lot of value. You can argue it on both sides, right? But removing the person from the office, pending an ongoing investigation, it makes logical sense. The manner in which it was done is questionable.
But here's the question. To some extent, there should be a limit, though, because my facetious example is literally to point out how ridiculous it could be, because it seems as though right now all they have is an accusation, and we don't even know what the accusation is, because as you said, we don't even know what she could have been arrested for, what they were looking for.
Like yourself, we are, and many of the persons in the public are waiting to find out what if or any charges will be laid and would be the charges. But that situation, understanding that the organization is already having an issue with trust and confidence, it makes it more difficult for the current acting commissioner of police to increase public trust and confidence. Because if the office of the commissioner and of this high level can be treated in this manner, and it has been brought about, how many persons who would have been arrested, gone through a process of this nature, felt victim.
Yeah.
Right, and they believe that the police victimized them. We have no trust and confidence in the police to investigate a matter properly and do the same. Now, because of the office of the commissioner, it has a lot of airways, right?
But not just that. There's also the perception of, look, they will, because some people think it was an attempt to an internal coup. I'm not going to go into the details, but that has even been expressed to some extent by a former commissioner and current members of the TTPS anonymously. So in my mind, it's like to the public now, it's like, wait, you're gonna stab your own in the back potentially. What about the rest of us?
And that is what I'm saying. When you're trying to build trust and confidence, now on the first occasion when the incident took place, I did in fact say it brings a level of trust in the organization to execute.
Yes.
To execute its authority and its lawful authority with fairness, right? So from that perspective, it means that it doesn't matter who committed an offense, we will execute. On that perspective, I am saying that the organization looks good from that, saying that we are fair and transparent in how we do our work. From that perspective. But what happened afterwards?
Undermine all of that.
Eroded that entire positive aspect of that we can investigate our own.
Well, I want to go a bit further now, because I think there's one aspect of this that is conveniently being kind of forgotten off to the side, because Major Best was arrested again, and he also was released, right? We don't know exactly what he was arrested for, because this might be a procedural issue, SSA with sniper rifles. We questioned that last week, right? The validity of that possession, right? With regards to why do you even need it, right? We've questioned that. But the real thing is, the SSA was technically already being probed. They had at least one murder case linked to it. It's to some extent unresolved. They already had FUL situations with prohibited weapons in the hands of SRPs who may or may not have had those weapons, and all kind of wild speculation, some of it from the government itself. And now, technically, Major Best was brought in with these SSA sniper rifles. The arrest was made. He was released again. To what extent could this whole fiasco also damage that investigation?
At the end of the day, when you listen to the type of litigation that's going before the courts and judgments being made against the execution of certain type of duties, persons are being compensated.
Yes.
Right? Who's going to pay the cake at the end of the day when we do follow proper procedure and do certain things? So I could just throw into the fray. If you arrested that individual on the first occasion, when I read in the article that they talk about a warrant was executed to seize all his equipment, electronic devices and something like that, right? Wasn't that done on the first occasion? Why come afterwards to seize it again? You should have seized everything on the first occasion.
Because
so why not?
all of this is speculated to have been done some time ago. These sniper rifles ain't new. It's not like Major Best was in charge of the SSA after the brigadier took over.
So then you come after the words, and there's the article said that you executed a warrant to seize all laptops and electronic devices and things after the fact. So then why do that after again? So you see, these are all the things that a lot of questions been asked. Is this our procedure? Is this proper procedure that we are following? And when the public and don't say the public is not following this. The public has a keen interest, keen interest in this. And there are many persons in different forums have a keen interest in how this matter is dealt with, because it will also set precedents when you have to execute and law enforcement has to do their job again. All these things are going to come up. And our procedure. So they keep on questioning our procedures, and that is the challenge we keep on facing. Not law enforcement and not the officers' ability to do the work, but sometimes the procedures where they adopt, and it's been challenged in the court, we have some issues. And you're seeing judgment going against the state for the procedures that we follow in. We have clear guidelines on how to do certain things. We have clear guidance. We have guidelines, so they tell us how to do. But when you go contrary to it, you put yourself in a different category, and you put yourself at the risk of making the entire organization look bad again. And we are not in a very good space, honestly speaking.
And not all of this is from just what has happened recently.
No,
right?
it emanates, it culminates from a number of other investigations that end up.
Because we've had issues, as we've spoken about Friday, we've had issues with the Commissioner of Police or involving that office, the meritless situation, the reappointment of Ayla. Then, of course, there's issues with Suzette Martin, who is the arresting officer in this case, and a similar issue with regards to procedure on the Brent Thomas affair. So and of course, then there's also the generic, well, what about the detection rate, the crime rate, and all of that? And when there's bad interactions with the average police officer on the street, yes. the cell phone incidents, the phone call incidents that were recorded and released to the public via social media, and so on and so on. Like, it's an uphill battle. And as much as Junior Benjamin has to say he will try and do his best to restore trust and confidence, as acting commissioner, to some extent, I don't know if he will even have the opportunity or the right circumstances, because he's just acting. And we don't even necessarily know for how long. Is he acting until Ayla's contract is up? Or is he just, might they utilize the fact that he's acting to say, well, we'll let him act for whatever the reasonable limit is, so that we could take our time with selecting the next commissioner of police. Maybe they'll just elevate him to commissioner. We don't know, right? But
we don't know.
Right now, as an acting, because Stephen Williams was kind of like always borderline lame duck status, because nobody knew how long he was going to be. He ended up acting for 8 years or some ridiculous something like that. There isn't much he could do as an acting commissioner compared to a substantial commissioner, if a substantial commissioner tried to do it. So, but because there's so many things that the public probably wants answers for, and answers are not forthcoming.
And yes and no, in terms of he has an acting commissioner has a lot of authority similar to that of a commissioner. However, there are certain things that in law speaks to commissioner of police.
Well, I
so there's a lot of issues with
because we've already seen, and I've always hated when the police executive had to urge officers to wear body cameras as opposed to just telling them and enforcing the rules when they don't wear body cameras, right? I don't understand what the urging is for. So if you have to urge officers to do things as the executive, you know, like imagine now if you're acting commissioner and potentially nobody knows how long you're going to actually be the commissioner. So usually our lame duck is, well, why, you know, informally your authority kind of shrinks. Well, because you're not guaranteed to be there in the long term. And that's what I was getting to.
I agree. So there are a lot of things that we have to look at going forward. The contract, a couple of months again for the contract to finish off.
For Hayward Christopher?
Yes, for the commissioner, the former commissioner, I should say now.
Well, I mean, technically, is she former commissioner? She's suspended, but she's not fired. So, I don't. To be fair, I don't know.
Fair enough.
I don't know what is the correct term.
Fair
in this
enough.
case.
I still trying to figure.
I'm
still trying to use the correct term, but let's pay Commissioner Hayward to be safe.
I mean,
right?
I didn't correct you before because I thought about I really don't know. I really don't know what is the correct.
And you and I are in the same position right now, so I would say so. Commissioner Hayward, Christopher, well, her contract should be ending in a couple of months.
I think it's May. I read May.
So from now until May, I think they should have the process in place, and we should be able to have our commissioner of police, official appointed commissioner of police, after that time, because we can't keep going again with the same narrative of acting commissioner again, because we had that whole issue with when Mr. Stephen Williams was around, and unfortunately they never confirmed him in the rank of commissioner of police, which was very poor.
Yes.
Right, and we just can't go through that again because.
By the way, so he technically was never commissioner of police.
Never commissioner of police, unfortunately.
I think this is what should be done, but I don't know if we have a provision to do it. Can they elevate him post-career? Like, because I know for retirement, some military officers, they get promotions as they retire.
I'm not
because
sure
I would argue he deserves all of the benefits of being a commissioner because he acted in post for 8 years. He's had a longer...
No,
he's been in there longer than some actual commissioners of police.
And exactly, but he would not be called, he would not have been given the title of commissioner of police, but he would have been acting commissioner of police, but he may have been getting he might get all his benefits as a commissioner because he acted in that. But sometimes the acknowledgement of the rank that you were in,
well, that's part of it too.
Speaks volumes to you also.
Because what happens is there's this weird thing with regards to the American military. No one is actually hired at 2-star. You're elevated to 3-star or higher for a specific role. But then in your retirement, you could maybe get that promotion to actually be permanent. So to me, I would just like, the man was essentially commissioner for 8 years. He should be henceforth commissioner of police.
And the sad thing about it is that in Trinidad and Tobago, the only organization under the Ministry of National Security that has a lot of controversial issues is that of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
I wouldn't say that.
Hold on. When it comes to the organizational heads,
I wouldn't say that either.
Right?
Well,
there is an argument for it because, and this is where I will trade out for you.
We just have the SSA head having to be replaced.
No, in most recent time, do we have any issues when it comes to the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service as to who's next in line?
No. But there is issues around the chief fire officer right now.
I'm not talking about from personal issues. I'm talking about next in line.
Okay. Oh, with the process.
Right, with the process of elevation.
Yes,
right. That is what I'm talking about.
Yes, that is correct.
I'm not in the organizations, so I would not question their internals.
No, but there's been no public concern over who the next CFO, Chief of the Defense Force, head of the Coast Guard, head of the regiment.
Head of the prison service.
Yes, you're correct.
Prison service, head of the fire service. It is a transition for somebody else to know that, okay, you will now be taking the next position. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, because of the fact that the Office of the Commissioner of Police, the responsibility or the authority vested in that office, sometimes I wonder if it needs to be controlled.
Maybe divested,
No.
spread out?
Or elements want to control that authority.
Yes.
Because
I think
that's a serious authority. Yeah?
There's a catch-22, right? On one hand, if the politicians don't have some say, they're going to get lambasted over things that goes on because the assumption is, well, you're in charge, so you're responsible for it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there are certain things they're not supposed to be able to touch, right? So how do you balance that? Because they are legitimately going to be blamed for what the police don't do and what the police fail to do. But sometimes you need to understand they're not supposed to be responsible for some of these things, for good or bad. So they're not supposed to take credit or take the blame for certain aspects of policing because they're not supposed to have their hands involved at all. So, but the public isn't going to see that, and to some extent, this is why I'm not going to fault politicians for wanting to select the commissioner at the very least.
I have no issue with that.
Right? Because, they will be blamed, right? Because, and to some extent, ideally, a democratically elected government, yes, I know that we're not exactly within the ideal, but they represent the will of the people.
And that office holds a lot of authority.
Yes, maybe too much. That's why I asked.
Constitutionally, it holds a lot of authority.
I find it very strange that the defense force has to get their firearms from, to some extent,
have their permit to import from.
I find that is very
Commissioner
strange.
of Police has to sign off.
I do wonder if there needs to be some other position for some of these other powers and responsibilities.
But for the last about 8 years now, I should say, probably about 8 years, 2018 to 2020, close to 8 years.
About 6 or 7 years.
6 or 7 years.
2018.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years. Every time there is the issue of commissioner and deputy commissioner, there's always a controversy.
Although I will say this though, I think we sleep on the issues with the Coast Guard, with the Defense Force, with the fire service, like they don't, and the prison service. There are things that need to be ventilated in the public in those things, just like how it's ventilated with the police, because serious things are happening that is cause for concern. But I guess with the police it's more obvious, and it's easier for the media to have the public's interest on that. Because I feel all the other things the media does put out there and then they die.
We are
in the media cycle.
The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is the direct. We have direct interactions with the general public on a regular basis.
That is also true, yes.
Right, so
none of them do.
We are much more scrutinized in our operational aspects of it and how we treat with the public. So yes, we understand that, but then we are also being unfairly criticized some of the times. Some of the times.
Yeah.
Right? So it has to have a reasonable balance. It has to have a reasonable balance.
All right, so we will open up the phone lines now. We won't take a break. We'll just go straight into it. You can call in and have your say on this or any other issue. There were a couple of other things, of course. The situation with Commissioner of Police is dominating the headlines, and rightfully so. Ashraf is right. The powers, and Karen Yeshara always comes back to this, the powers in the commissioner with regards to FULs, with regards to essentially having the authority over the police service, which is one of the larger arms, you could say, of the national security apparatus. And technically having that authority over certain functions of arrest, and who to investigate and who not to investigate, and so on and so on. And the oversight of the Commissioner of Police is in a very weird place. Maybe there's political interference, maybe there isn't. It's hard not to assume that there isn't, right? Which is unfortunate for the government. They have that uphill battle to kind of try and figure out. But hey, transparency works for you, and when you fail to do it, you have to reap what you sow. So you could call in on this or any other issue. But I guess with that said, we may be having our first phone call, so I'm not too sure if I'm going to have time to squeeze in a question here. But moving forward, though, okay, before we get to that, we have Davide on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Hey, Sean. Morning. Yes.
Morning,
sir. I have listened attentively to what ASP Ashraf has to say, and also more attentively as to what he isn't saying, I guess what he cannot say on the tube this morning. ASP Ashraf, I respect your professionalism. However, my comment this morning is that all of this thing that is happening with our Commissioner of Police need not happen. And this is something historical that has been going on with the executive and the higher ranks who believe that they could do a better job than the other one. Sean, I want to say this morning is that any time the police service can get that thing corrected on top with respect to they sorting out, and if we Ashraf, I don't know how many more programs that you have, but as a lecturer in Management 101, you see that 2-year strategic plan, I will always continue ponging in it.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the police service has no vision. When you look at the Chinese and them, and they do strategic planning for 30 and 40 years, so they know exactly where they would like to be in 30 and 40 years. A 2-year vision, that is a medium-term plan. That strategic plan, that is a medium-term plan. And it means to say that if there's no direction from the top as to where they would like to see themselves in 10, 15, 20 years, it means to say that we are going nowhere quickly. Have a nice day, and I don't know when your pre-retirement starts, but I hope that you really,
I am already on it, sir.
He's already on pre-retirement.
All right, so I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you, individually, that you have a plan going forward for you and your family, because you have a lot in you, as I would see, and I wish you and your family all the best in the near-distance future. Sean, wonderful program as usual. You'll have a nice day, yeah.
Thank you, Dabadi. We have St. James on the line. Caller, good morning. You're on the air, caller.
Yes, good morning.
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 Yeah, this is a question for the new staff there. I'm trying to understand the process here. When DCP Martin came up with the charge, or supposedly, the charge that she wanted to take, did she have to get permission from somebody? Did she have to get okay from somebody higher up to go ahead with this, with charging the commissioner? Or did she have discussion with the others, and they decided that well, okay, we all have a case here, let us go through it. I'm trying to understand that process.
Well, caller,
thank you, caller.
Caller, thanks. Well, just to ensure that, remember, Miss Ulla Christopher has not been charged.
Yes. She was arrested but not charged.
She was arrested, pending charges. I think that is what the caller is trying to was saying charge, because everybody is questioning or asking the question. What charge? We don't know what charge can come out of it, right? But she was arrested, and we have a because of how persons view things in the TTPS or in Trinidad and Tobago is that when somebody is arrested, they feel that they could be automatically charged.
Right.
No, you can be arrested pending the outcome of a charge.
There's a second part to the question that I think is even more pertinent. But we have Santana on the line. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Morning.
Morning. Good morning. Let me go back to the long time days. Good morning, Mr. Ashraf.
Good morning, sir.
Sean, let me first say, Mr. retired ACP nurse, who is also an attorney, also came out in the public and commented on that issue of these so-called sniper rifles not being automatic weapons. So there seems to be some sort of ambiguity within, because There are some people saying that they are not automatic weapons. Apparently, Ms. Martin and they seem to think there's an issue here with that they're automatic weapons. So we need to fix. Those are the things that we need to fix. Trinidad and Tobago, I wish the next government coming in don't make no more new law. We have enough. We have enough. Just look at what we have and try to fix, amend a lot. Because we need amend because there's too much ambiguity in this little situation here. There is a discrepancy with the interpretation of the act.
I agree with you, San Fernando, and I think going forward, when the act the act was actually assented, we never had weapons of this caliber and type.
Yes. But right? they reached our shores. We know that last year.
So the issue is
or the year before.
The issue that I'm agreeing with the caller, it is not about the act per se. It's about amending this act now because there's a lot of discrepancies in the interpretation of it.
And loopholes.
You understand? So when you talk about automatic weapon, you can have a weapon looking very hostile because of the model, design, manufacturer do design and all kinds of things with a weapon. It could look hostile. Let me just put it very hostile and tactical.
Yeah.
But it is not an automatic weapon. It's a single action because that's how it is. But the law is different.
San Fernando, anything else? Okay, thank you, caller. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I 100% actually agree. Maybe there might be some circumstances where we might regret this position, but there's too many things to clean up, and the Firearms Act is one of them. Because technically, according to the Firearms Act, I could have a semi-automatic AR-15, and it won't be illegal. And I would argue that is just as bad, if not worse, than a fully automatic rifle in some ways.
So that there's need to revisit the act itself.
Because tactically speaking, a semi-automatic rifle is someone using a semi-automatic rifle is more dangerous than someone just spraying and praying.
Well,
right? Tactically, not with regards to collateral damage. We have Kuva on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Okay, we may have lost Kuva. Kuva, if you could call back in.
San Fernando.
Oh, San Fernando back. Good morning, caller. Yeah.
Well, I have an issue with picking Mr. Benjamin as well as picking Mr. Simon. Well, I have no problem with Mr. Simon. When on the Friday when they had that news conference at the head table there, they had Corporal Ali from the legal department, they had Mr. Benjamin, they had Miss Martin, and they had ECP. Oh gosh, I forget that. Smith.
Okay.
Yeah, they had ACP Smith there. I was in the front line. But Smith was there to give his information on the SOE and that type of thing. In light of this, because I had not believed that Mr. Benjamin did not know the goings-on of this thing, and I, as a PSC, should not have appointed him, in my opinion, as the substantive to act as COP. There are two other DCPs besides those two that were in the front here. Mr. Hazel, who was at the back, and is it Miss George, ASP?
Yeah, Miss George.
And she was not there. I did not see Miss George there. And just for the optics, I'm looking at the optics, because those people at the back there, they were, and I don't know if they were used to show, because remember it was to show that the police service still, the hierarchy still together.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was a plot just to use those people. If those people probably did not agree to what was going on, but they were actually used to the optics. And in that regard, I would have used either Mr. Hazel or Miss George to act. But the other thing is, as Rodney Charles, and he said, John, Rodney Charles said rightly so. You can't have a position of those senior positions coming up and just a resume and parliamentarians that was correct. We probably need to have something like an oversight committee in the U.S. when these appointments are made. Yes, like a confirmation. And when these things are things that they are actually being interviewed and asked questions, and then the decision is made from that.
Yeah, and their complaints of not being able to defend themselves, then they can defend themselves.
That's right. That's correct too, because people bringing up actions against the merit list and all kind of things because of that.
Sanford, I'm sorry, we're going to have to end it there because Kuva's been waiting again. Thank you for the call. Kuva, good morning. Are you with us?
Good morning.
Sorry for the wait, Kuva.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, go ahead.
Now, all I am saying to you all is that there are automatic sniper rifles. If you Google it, you will see there are automatic sniper rifles.
Yes.
So the whole case about whether it, what I want to know is whether it is legal or illegal. There are automatic sniper rifles.
Right.
Right. So that is what I want to know.
Caller, if I'm answering one time, it is not illegal. Hold on.
Yeah.
There are weapons that does not. When we use the word prohibited, the prohibited weapons are the ones that you need special permission to bring in. Okay. So when you have
what I'm saying is they are saying that sniper rifles are not illegal.
Yes.
It is not illegal. Sniper rifles are not illegal.
I think I know where you're going, caller. The fact of the matter is, not all sniper rifles, most are not automatic. The ones that are automatic would be prohibited under the law. The ones that are not...
I'm telling you, there is automatic.
Yes, but caller, you're not paying attention to what I'm saying specifically. Most of them are not, and the ones that are not will not be under the classification of prohibited. It doesn't matter that some are. There are pistols that are automatic, and those pistols will be prohibited.
Exactly.
And the semi-automatic pistols, which are the vast majority of pistols, will not be prohibited.
Well, I just want to know whether it's legal or not.
So now we get into the finer tooth comb.
Let me explain this to you. There are shotguns that are automatic. Are you aware of that also?
Yes, they have.
Right.
You could make any.
No. We're not making. I'm not talking about making. I am talking about manufacturer. We're not talking about adapting it anyway. We're talking about manufacturer.
Well, this I was talking about manufacturer.
Yes.
Good.
Automatic.
Right. So the ones that are manufactured automatic are prohibited. You need special permission to bring that down.
Right.
And I'm saying the model in question that is questionable at this point in time, or is the conversation, is not a automatic. It is not an automatic.
It's bolt action, I believe.
You all know the model that came down?
What's that, sir?
The models in question are known.
The specific model that we were treating with, and that is the center of the conversation, is not a prohibited weapon. This model. So there are prohibited models that are fully automatic. We're not talking about that. The question about this
one.
one.
I want to know is, do we know the model?
Yes, we know. Yes.
They have been reported, a specific model.
The model has been identified specifically because
I can't remember what the model was.
The permit, and you will see that the permit has been circulating on social media, right? It specifies the type of weapon, the caliber and model. So you can search our model, and everybody is in agreement with it. That model is not a prohibited.
I think it's a 7.62 bolt action.
Bolt action, AX something.
Yeah. So bolt action is, definitely not automatic.
So the conversation here now is that we in Trinidad, and that is why we are having the conversation just now, that the Firearm Act needs to be revisited. And
although, to some extent, the commissioner still has to approve all FULs, right?
Must approve it.
So if you want to get an FUL for a sniper rifle or a semi-automatic rifle, like a semi-automatic AR, the commissioner, in theory, could just say no.
Yes, good.
Right? And no one will, I hope no one will complain for this.
No,
because
no.
I actually do understand the argument that, look, an AR might be the best self-defense weapon because compared to a double-barrel shotgun or a pistol, your grandmother could potentially use it more accurately. It's not about the firepower or whatever. It's about the ease of use. It is easier to use than a pistol. It is easier to use than a shotgun.
And the thing about this is that when you, when you look at, we are viewing...
Thank you, Cooper.
We are viewing firearms from aesthetics.
Yes.
What we're looking at, not understanding
the
uses of the weapon.
Yes.
It is highly impracticable for someone to have a automatic weapon, right? For personal protection.
Yeah, it's very impractical.
It's not practical.
Some militaries have done away with full automatic.
Right. Law enforcement agencies and military personnel who use those type of weapons as secondary weapons when they go into tactical response, they have those type of weapons.
Right, but like when you look at most militaries now, for the last 20 years, the default is semi-automatic. The default is not automatic.
Exactly, right? Because they look at the user force and the risk factors associated with fully automatic.
And also just the efficiency.
Exactly.
Right?
So,
but I was going to say, you can make a case for semi-automatic rifles for home defense. There's no case for sniper rifles. I do not need a sniper rifle for home defense.
And that is why the conversation with sniper rifles is for a specific purpose and a specific group of individuals for that. Yes, when we have target shooting, we have competition shooting, there are prohibited weapons that has been used in target shooting.
Right.
But permission has been granted for those type of weapons for that purpose. For those type of purposes because it's for sports and target shooting. Right? It is not for general use.
It's not even necessarily in those cases for self-defense. You can't have it in your house loaded, ready to go.
It is for competition, and there are different type of competition that uses certain type of weapons.
Yes, including automatic
weapons. Right? So because of I'm saying because of how firearms have been proliferated in this country and a lot of persons using firearms for criminal activities and it has been so prolific and causing so much damage. And when we hear the word assault rifle, we just go down a tangent one time and be like, hey, some conspiracy theory coming with it.
Yeah.
Not understanding that it may not be, right? So I think we have to, I think as Trinidad and Tobago mature when it comes to firearms, we have to mature in our mindset and our thinking about firearms, both the positive and negative aspects of firearms.
Yes.
And as in, like in the United States, in the Constitution, firearms are there, right? They have that. But there are also negative connotations towards firearms, and several different states are trying to put some measures in place because, notwithstanding owning a firearm, there are situations that presents itself, right? So we have to mature. We have to get more mature in our mindset and our thinking going forward when it comes to the use of firearms, legal firearms, and treat and don't mix up legal firearms and the words prohibited and all of that, how the law is structured as to what illegal firearms. All illegal firearms is illegal, case rules.
Yeah, and our structure of the laws, one could argue, yes, it might seem confusing, right? Now, I'll just say this. Ironically, one of the controversies surrounding EARLA was the whole situation of FULs and not granting FULs to the public, whereas now she's being blamed for granting FULs for the SSA. And the SSA, who's supposed to only have firearms for self-defense, so again, to what extent would they justify sniper rifles for self-defense? That's not the norm. The only thing you need a sniper rifle to defend against is another sniper. So how many times, the threat level for a government agency to be hit with a sniper rifle themselves, you need to justify it on that level, right? You can't have a security guard at the door with a sniper rifle. That's just not gonna work.
Well, I hope we don't ever reach a situation like that.
That's a good point. Quickly, we don't necessarily have time to get into it. There was a question of, did Martin get permission? Because the assumption is for the Brent Thomas thing, she would have had to get authorization. She can get playing for herself. Now, in this case, technically speaking, I think it's not that she required permission, because I don't think any politician could have authorized arresting the commissioner.
No, you don't need permission to arrest anyone.
But we don't know if the informal political permission was granted. There's no way to know to answer that question.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
That is where the whole, a lot of gray areas came out, and conversation has been going different sides.
Because, listen, just because she may have actually sought permission from from cabinet doesn't mean that it's wrong. Sometimes it's not that so much you're asking permission as opposed to, look, this is such a grave situation. This might be part of making sure your ducks in a row. You know, it's like, all right, look, we have the commissioner. She's done some things. We're letting you know that we're going to arrest her. Is there anything I need to know before we arrest her? Which you assume is what happened, but the letter that was then, in the media about what she wrote to the Prime Minister after the fact, I don't know what the purpose of revealing that to me was for, but it suggests that no, she didn't speak to the Prime Minister or anybody on that level before this happened, which, if that is true, not saying that it's 100% true, but if that is true, yeah, that lawsuit can be real fat. That's all I'm going to say about that. Thanks to all the callers for calling in. Thank you to Ashraf Ali for joining me once again.
No problem.
Folks, closing out the week. I mean, last Friday was a doozy. This Friday, the saga continues. We're not too sure how it's going to turn out next week. But while we go through that transition, you can make today and this weekend a good one, as Mr. Shaw would always say. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Don't miss the Super Bowl this Sunday. And if you can't, drop on 63 Lounge. You'll see me and Andre there. And we could have one hell of a watch party. But until then, stay safe. Remember, it's nice to be nice, even to people you might not like. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Trinidad and Tobago, stand ready.